Jason stepped into the cave with slow, careful steps. The flashlight in his hand flickered, barely showing the way. Beside him, the alien girl, Rinaka, moved like a shadow. She didn't speak much, but her eyes were always watching, always alert. They had followed an old map they found in the ruins of a crashed ship. It showed a hidden path that led to a secret chamber deep underground. Jason hoped it might hold supplies, or maybe even a way to contact help. Their shuttle had been destroyed 2 days ago during the storm. As they moved deeper into the cave, the air became cold and damp. Water dripped from above, echoing like whispers in the dark. The cave grew tighter, the walls pressing closer. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet. Jason looked back just in time to see the entrance collapse. Rocks tumbled down like a waterfall of stone, sealing the only way out. A cloud of dust filled the air, and Jason coughed. Waving his hand, "Rinaka," he called, his voice cracked and shaky. "I'm here," she replied softly, her voice calm but serious. Jason's heart raced, his palms sweaty. They were trapped deep underground, with no signal and no sunlight. No one knew where they were, and there was no way back. Jason kicked a rock, frustration rising inside him. "This was stupid," he muttered. "We should have waited." Rinaka walked over to the wall and placed her palm on it. She closed her eyes and whispered something in her own language. "What are you doing?" Jason asked. Confused, she opened her eyes and said, "I've been here before." Jason stared at her, stunned. "This place. My people used it a long time ago during the wars," she explained. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed worry. "There are paths inside, but many are lost or blocked," she added. Jason took a deep breath, trying to focus. "Then we need to find one that isn't blocked," he said. They turned and walked deeper into the cave. The walls were rough and covered in old markings. Jason touched one of the symbols. It glowed faintly under his fingers. "What is this?" he asked. Rinaka looked closely and nodded. "It's a map," she said, "but it's written in an old dialect." She studied it for a moment, tracing lines with her glowing finger. "There might be a way forward," she whispered. They followed the markings through narrow tunnels. The light from Jason's flashlight grew weaker. Soon, it blinked out, leaving them in darkness. Jason cursed it. But then Rinaka's skin began to glow softly. It was like moonlight, gentle but bright enough to see. Jason stared in awe. "You glow?" he asked. "Yes," she said simply. "My body reacts to danger." Jason nodded, still amazed. They kept walking, turning corners and stepping over old bones. Strange echoes filled the cave, soft groans, distant thumps. "Do you hear that?" Jason asked, stopping. Rinaka's glow dimmed slightly. "Yes. And I don't like it." They found a larger chamber with high walls and a broken ceiling. Rocks had fallen long ago, leaving only one tight passage ahead. But before they could move forward, Jason noticed something strange. There were scratches on the walls, as if something large had passed through. Rinaka touched one of the marks, her fingers trembling. "This was not made by a tool," she whispered. Jason looked around nervously. "You think something's down here with us?" Rinaka nodded slowly. "Something old." Jason felt his chest tighten. His flashlight clicked uselessly, still dead. He looked at Rinaka's glowing skin, grateful but also scared. "What do we do now?" he asked. "We keep moving," she replied. "If we stop, it finds us." Jason didn't ask what it was. He didn't want to know, not yet. They stepped into the narrow tunnel ahead. Moving quietly behind them, the shadows shifted. The cave was no longer silent. Something else was breathing in the dark. And it wasn't human. Jason sat with his back against the cold rock, breathing slow and heavy. Rinaka crouched nearby, her eyes focused on the darkness ahead. They hadn't spoken for almost an hour. The tunnel felt endless, but it also felt like it was watching them. Jason's legs hurt, and his lips were dry. He reached for the canteen, but it was empty. "No more water," he whispered. Not expecting a solution, Rinaka didn't reply. She simply held out her hand and showed him her wrist. A long, thin scar ran across it, but there was no blood. It healed already. She said like it was normal. Jason blinked, confused. That cut was from yesterday. Yes, she said, but I regenerate quickly. Jason stared at her like she was made of magic. How fast? He asked. She looked away, then answered, if something is removed, it grows back in 2 days. He didn't say anything, but the thought stayed in his mind. They kept walking until the tunnel opened into a small chamber. There was no light, but Rinaka's glow made the walls shimmer softly. Jason collapsed onto a stone bench, if that's what it was. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. He saw flashes of home, of stars, of people he had lost. He opened his eyes quickly, not wanting to dream. Rinaka stood still like a statue, listening to something Jason couldn't hear. Then she looked at him and said, there's something deeper down. Jason's heart sank. Like what? I don't know, she replied. But it's big, and it's not sleeping. He stood up, suddenly alert again. Then we go the other way, he said, but she shook her head. There is no other way, she whispered. Jason wanted to scream, but he knew it wouldn't help. He kicked a loose rock across the floor and watched it roll into the darkness. Then something strange happened. The rock bounced back. Rinaka stepped forward, cautious. She placed her hand on the floor and closed her eyes. Her skin brightened, like fireflies dancing under her skin. There's air flowing from that side, she said. A way out. Jason felt a flicker of hope. He grabbed his pack and followed her toward the direction the air came from. The tunnel sloped down, not up. That made Jason nervous, but Rinaka seemed sure. Minutes turned into hours, and Jason felt himself losing grip. He was tired, hungry, and his thoughts felt slow. At one point, he thought he saw someone ahead, a figure waving at him. He smiled weakly and reached out, but the figure vanished. Suddenly, he stumbled and nearly fell. Rinaka caught him with surprising strength. You're hallucinating, she said, her voice sharper than before. Lack of food, water, and sleep, she added. Jason laughed without meaning to. I'm losing my mind in a glowing cave with a regrowing alien, he said. Rinaka didn't smile, but she leaned closer. My body can give light, heat, and a little energy, she said softly. Before Jason could ask what she meant, she placed her hand on his forehead. It felt warm, warmer than it should. A wave of energy pulsed through his skin like a gentle shock. His head cleared slightly, and the shaking stopped. He looked at her with new eyes. What else can you do? She stood and looked down the tunnel. Survive, she said. The air was stronger now, blowing gently against their faces. Jason smiled for the first time in days, but as they turned the final corner, they both froze. The tunnel was blocked, not by rocks, but by metal. A huge door stood in front of them, ancient and covered in dust. Symbols like the ones before ran across its frame. Jason stepped forward and touched it. The metal was warm, as if something behind it was alive. Then they heard it. Low growl, not mechanical, but alive. Rinaka whispered something in her language, a word Jason didn't understand. He looked at her, afraid. What did you say? He asked. She turned to him and said, the Guardian is awake. Jason took a step back, his mouth dry again. Behind that door, something moved, something big, and the only way forward was through it. The ground beneath Jason's boots felt warmer than before. Rinaka stood beside him, her glowing hand still pressed against the ancient metal door. Neither of them spoke. They were both listening. From behind the door came the sound of slow breathing. Not a machine's hiss, but the deep inhale and exhale of something alive. Jason whispered, how old is this place? Rinaka didn't answer at first, then said, older than your planet cities. Jason stepped back, his fingers shaking slightly. We can't go through that, he said. We have to, Rinaka replied, her voice steady but low. If we turn back, we run out of air. Jason looked down the tunnel, the way they had come. Darkness swallowed everything behind them. He sighed and nodded, trying to be brave. Okay, he said. but we need a plan. They sat on the rocky floor, resting for a while. Jason felt dizzy, his stomach tight with hunger. His thoughts grew foggy, like smoke clouding his brain. He started mumbling, words that made no sense. Rinaka crawled closer, her skin glowing more brightly now. She touched his face gently, and he stopped shaking. Her warmth spread through him like sunlight. But this time, it felt too strong too. Intense. Jason gasped as strange images filled his mind, memories that were not his. He saw tall silver towers under twin suns. He saw creatures like Rinaka fighting in firestorms. He pulled away, heart pounding. What was that? He asked, eyes wide. Rinaka looked surprised, maybe even scared. That wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. You saw something? She asked. Yes, he replied. But it wasn't from Earth. Rinaka closed her eyes, breathing slowly. Our minds touched, she said. That only happens during deep stress. Jason stood and paced, trying to calm down. Do you always share memories when people are stressed? No, she said. Only when we care too much. Jason stopped walking, stunned. They both fell silent. But before either could speak again, the door creaked, just a little, just enough to let out a thin hiss of hot air. Jason raised the metal rod he had taken from the cave wall. They waited, not blinking, but nothing else came through. Maybe it's testing us, Rinaka said, her voice softer than before. Jason swallowed hard. I'm not ready for a test. Still, they pushed forward. Rinaka placed her hand on the door again. This time, the symbols lit up, glowing with soft golden light. Jason stepped forward and placed his hand beside hers. The door groaned, and slowly, it opened just wide enough for them to slide through. Inside was a massive chamber lit by glowing crystals on the ceiling. It was warm, too warm, and in the center, something huge was curled up, breathing slowly. It looked like a giant beast made of stone and metal. Its eyes were closed, but it twitched as they entered. Jason's mouth went dry. He whispered, "That's not a guardian. That's a monster." Rinaka stepped ahead of him and whispered something in her language. The beast stirred, one eye blinking open. It was yellow and filled with swirling shapes. It stared at Rinaka, then at Jason. The air got heavier. Jason's legs felt like they were made of iron. "I can't move," he said, gritting his teeth. "It's testing our fear," Rinaka said. "Don't show it." Jason clenched his fists, shaking. His heart screamed at him to run, but his feet stayed. Rinaka knelt down and bowed her head low. The beast lowered its head slowly and touched the floor. Silence returned. Then the beast rolled to the side and revealed a door behind it. A path forward. Jason exhaled sharply, realizing he had been holding his breath. They stepped around the beast carefully. Jason kept his eyes down, his hands tight on the metal rod. Only when they reached the next tunnel did Rinaka whisper, "I didn't think that would work." Jason looked at her, still shaking. "Then why did you try it?" he asked. She looked back and smiled faintly. "Because you didn't run." They kept walking. Deeper into the unknown, Jason's mind was spinning. He had faced death, shared memories, and now survived a test from an ancient beast, but his hunger was worse now, his energy almost gone. And ahead, the path began to narrow again. The cave was not done with them yet. The tunnel ahead was narrow. Like it didn't want them to pass, Jason had to crouch, his backpack scraping the walls. Rinaka moved ahead of him, her glow dimmer now. She said nothing, but Jason could tell something was wrong. The silence was too heavy, not the normal quiet of caves, but a stillness that felt like holding your breath for too long. Even the air had changed. It smelled metallic, like old blood. Jason stopped and whispered, "Are we alone?" Rinaka turned slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," she said. "We are being watched." Jason's skin crawled. He wanted to turn back, but there was nothing to return to. The tunnel opened suddenly into a wide pit. It looked bottomless, but Rinaka pointed to a narrow ledge running around the edge. They had no ropes, no safety gear, just trust in their feet. Jason followed her. each step slow and careful. Halfway across, something groaned from the pit below. It wasn't an animal sound, not even a machine. It sounded like a throat trying to speak after 1,000 years. Jason stopped moving. His breath caught in his chest. Then he saw it, just for a second. A pale shape climbing up the side of the pit. It had too many arms and no face. It slipped back into the dark before he could scream. "Did you see it?" he asked, shaking. Rinaka nodded slowly. "That is the crawler," she said. "It was made to keep things in, not out." Jason looked down into the pit again, but saw only darkness. "How many of those are there?" he asked. "I don't know," Rinaka said, "but one is enough." They moved faster now, trying not to look down again. Once they reached the other side, Jason collapsed to his knees. His heart was beating like drums in a panic. Rinaka didn't sit. She stood still, listening. Behind them, the sound of claws scraped against stone. It was faint, but it was getting closer. Jason stood up quickly, his legs weak. "We have to go," he said. "We have to run." Rinaka didn't argue. They ran through twisting halls, over broken floors, and under hanging stone teeth. The walls became wet and alive, pulsing like skin. The cave was changing, like it knew they were fleeing at last. They came into a large round chamber. It was empty at first glance, but in the center stood a stone altar, and chained to that altar was a skeleton. Jason stepped forward, curious, but the moment he touched the chain, it snapped without effort. A voice filled the chamber, not a voice in the air, but in his head. "You are not supposed to be here," it said. Jason backed away, his ears ringing. Rinaka fell to one knee, holding her head. "The guardian is not the only one here," she whispered. Jason looked at the skeleton. It was glowing now. Suddenly, the ground shook and dust fell from above. From the walls came cracks, and through those cracks came more sounds. Not breathing, but crawling. Dozens of claws scraping closer and closer. Jason grabbed Rinaka's hand, pulling her toward the next tunnel. She followed, barely on her feet. As they ran, the glow behind them grew stronger. The skeleton on the altar was moving, but they didn't look back, not even when the air behind them screamed. They ran until their legs nearly gave out, and then they found a door, smaller than before, but still a way forward. Jason opened it with all his strength. They stumbled through, falling into another tunnel. This one was silent, cold, and still, for now the things behind them were gone. Jason helped Rinaka sit down against the wall. She was breathing fast, her skin losing its glow. "We're not safe," she said. "But we bought time." Jason sat beside her, shaking but alive. "What was that altar?" he asked. "A trap," Rinaka answered. "A memory trap. And maybe a warning." Jason didn't speak for a while. His body hurt, and his mind felt stretched thin. The cave was trying to break them, and it was only getting better at it. Jason woke with a jerk, cold sweat on his neck. He had dreamed of hands reaching from the stones, pulling him down. Rinaka was already awake, her glow soft but flickering. She was staring at the wall, not blinking, not speaking. Jason sat up slowly, his body sore. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked. "No," she replied. "The cave has changed again." Jason looked around, and she was right. The tunnel was no longer stone. The walls now looked smooth, almost polished. Strange carvings covered every surface, some glowing faintly, like breath under skin. Jason reached out to touch one, but Rinaka grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she said firmly. "These are alive." He pulled his hand back quickly. "Alive? What do you mean?" "They respond to thought," she said. "Some of them can trap your mind forever." Jason swallowed hard and stepped back. They moved forward, stepping carefully. Every sound they made echoed like a whisper in a giant ear. Jason noticed the tunnel sloped slightly upward now. "We're heading toward the surface?" he asked, hopeful. "Maybe," Rinaka said. "But this is the most dangerous part." Jason raised an eyebrow. "More dangerous than skeletons that scream and crawlers that follow us?" She nodded. "Yes, because now the cave will offer you lies, Jason didn't understand what she meant until he heard a voice. It was his sister's voice, soft and kind. "Jason." It said from somewhere ahead, "Come this way, I found the way out." He froze, eyes wide. His sister had died years ago, and yet the voice sounded exactly like her. Rinaka grabbed his hand and pulled him back. "Don't listen," she said. "It's not real." Jason shook his head, confused and frightened. It sounded just like her. He whispered. "I know," Rinaka said. "The cave reads your memories, your heart, and it uses them to trap you." They kept moving, ignoring the voices that followed them. His sister, his old teacher, even his mother all calling. His name. Then the air changed again. It was colder, heavier, and smelled like wet stone and old machines. They reached another chamber, wide and full of sharp, crystal pillars. At the far end was a hole in the ceiling, a possible way out. Jason ran toward it, heart pounding. But before he reached the center, the ground cracked under his feet. A pit opened, and he barely jumped back in time. From the pit came a deep, rumbling voice. "Sacrifice," it said, slow and loud. Jason looked at Rinaka, confused. "What is it saying?" She stepped forward, her face pale. "It wants something from us," she said. "A trade." Jason looked at the hole above. It was real. Sunlight poured through it, but it was too high to climb. He searched his pack, looking for a rope, anything, nothing. Then he looked at Rinaka and saw her already staring at her leg. "No," he said instantly. "Don't even think about it. It will regrow," she said quietly, "and it will give you a rope." Jason's heart dropped. He knew she was serious. Her species could regenerate, but this was different. She would feel the pain, the loss, the fear. There has to be another way. He said, almost begging. "There isn't," she replied, kneeling down. She reached into his bag and pulled out the sharpest tool they had. Her hands didn't tremble, but her eyes shimmered like tears. "Don't do this," Jason said. Again, voice shaking. "I trust you," Rinaka whispered. "Just do it fast." He didn't move. He stared at her leg, then at the shining hole above. Then the ground shook again. And the voice repeated, "Sacrifice." Jason clenched his jaw, closed his eyes, and raised the blade. He would carry this moment forever. With one quick motion, it was done. Rinaka screamed, but she didn't cry. She fell back, breathing hard. While blue light poured from the wound, Jason grabbed the severed limb, his hands wet and trembling. He tied it with all his strength, securing it to a crystal pillar. He climbed higher and higher, the light above growing stronger. His arms burned. His legs ached, but he didn't stop until his hand reached the edge. He pulled himself into the light. Air filled his lungs fresh. Cold, real, but he didn't cheer, didn't smile. He turned back and looked down the hole. Rinaka was still below, silent and small. The cave had taken from them, and it wasn't finished yet. Wind hit Jason's face as he pulled himself out of the hole. He collapsed on the rocky ground, coughing and gasping for air. The sky above was gray, clouds swirling like they were watching him, but all he could think about was what he had left behind. Rinaka, bleeding and broken, still inside the cave. He sat up and looked back into the darkness below. "Hold on," he whispered. Even though she probably couldn't hear him, the rope made from her limbs swayed in the wind, reminding him of what she had given. Jason scanned the area, hoping for help, for a ship, for anything. But the land was empty, just cliffs, cracked ground, and far-off mountains. He couldn't leave her there, not after everything. He checked his pack again and found a flare, one of the last supplies they had. He lit it and sent it into the sky, hoping someone would see it. Then he tied the rope tighter to a strong rock, and without waiting, he began climbing back down. The light above faded with every step he took, swallowed again by the cave's mouth. When he reached the bottom, he saw Rinaka slumped against the wall. Her eyes were half open, her skin dim, but she was alive. He rushed to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Hey," he said softly. "You're going to be okay." She blinked slowly, then smiled. Just a little. I knew you'd come back, she said. Jason helped her sit up, careful of her leg or where her leg used to be. Then something strange happened. Her skin around the wound began to glow brighter. Flesh moved, shifted like it was waking up. And before Jason could say a word, he saw it, a new leg. Already forming, not fully grown, but already taking shape. He watched in silent amazement. I told you, Rinaka whispered, it will regrow. Jason let out a shaky breath and helped her stand. She leaned on him, but her strength was slowly returning. Together, they made their way back to the rope. Jason climbed first, then reached down to help her. He pulled with everything he had, and when she finally stepped onto the surface, they both collapsed. The sky above them rumbled, but it felt like a victory. They lay on their backs, not speaking, just breathing. After a while, Jason turned to her. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, she replied. I did. Jason didn't argue. The air was colder now. A storm was forming in the distance, lightning flashing behind the mountains. Jason stood and helped Rinaka up again. We can't stay here, he said. She nodded, her glowing eyes watching the storm. There's a station about 3 miles north, she said. I remember it from before. But it's hidden. Jason didn't ask how she knew. He just trusted her now. They walked slowly, step by step, across the broken ground. Rinaka's new leg still forming with each stride. Jason stayed close, ready to catch her if she fell. But she didn't. Then, after nearly an hour, they saw something in the distance. A shape buried under the rock, an old antenna sticking out like a finger pointing up. Jason rushed forward and began clearing away the dirt and stone. Beneath it was a rusted door, locked tight. Rinaka placed her hand on it. The door didn't open, but it responded. The symbols from the cave lit up along the edges. Then, with a slow click, it opened. Inside was dark, but not dead. Lights flickered to life, one by one. Jason looked at her amazed. You've been here before, he said. Yes, she replied, but not alone. Her voice was quiet, almost sad. Jason wanted to ask more, but then something deep inside. The station made a noise, not dangerous, just mechanical. A heartbeat of a forgotten place waking up again. They stepped inside, not knowing if it was safety or another trap, but they were together, and they had survived the cave. Jason looked down at her new leg. It looked different, now more like his than before, smoother, straighter. He didn't say anything, but Rinaka noticed too. They were changing, not just surviving, becoming something more. The air inside the old station was thick with dust and memory. Jason moved slowly, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark like a blade. Rinaka walked beside him, her steps uneven but strong. Her new leg had grown almost completely, but it still shimmered in a strange way. They passed broken doors and shattered screens. Old wires hung from the ceiling like vines in a jungle. Some lights blinked on without reason. Others sparked once and went dark again. It didn't feel abandoned, not completely. Jason could sense something watching them. Not a creature this time, but the station itself, like it had a mind buried deep in its walls. They reached a large control room at the end of the hall. The glass window inside showed a view of the planet beyond, a sky full of dark clouds and falling ash. Rinaka moved to the console and placed her hand on the surface. Symbols lit up, one by one, as if the station remembered her. Jason watched. As a screen flickered to life, a map appeared, showing mountains, rivers, and tiny blinking dots. One of those dots was them. Rinaka touched it gently, and the map zoomed in. This place, she said, used to be a refuge. Jason leaned closer. For your people? Yes, she replied, but only those who were different. He didn't ask what that meant, not yet. Then another screen turned on, this one showing logs. Video clips from years ago, scientists, engineers, alien workers, even humans. Jason saw one face that looked familiar. His heart skipped. That's my uncle, he whispered. The man on the screen spoke in a calm voice. Project Harmony, he said, is meant to test genetic connection between species. Jason turned to Rinaka, stunned. You were part of this, he said. You were made to link with humans, Rinaka nodded slowly, her eyes sad but clear. I didn't know until now, she said. But it explains the memories we shared. Jason sat down, overwhelmed. All this time. I thought we were just lost. We were never just lost, Rinaka said. We were part of something bigger, something forgotten. Then the screen changed again, showing a blinking alert. Emergency pod detected, it read. One survivor in cryo chamber. Jason stood quickly. Where? The map blinked, showing a room nearby. They rushed down the hall, past broken machines and silent hallways. The door was jammed, but Jason forced it open with a metal pipe. Inside was a chamber filled with frost and tubes. A single pod stood. In the middle, glowing faintly, Rinaka wiped the frost away and looked through the glass. Inside was a young girl human, breathing, asleep. Jason stepped back, stunned. That's my sister, he said. I thought she died. The machine began to hum. Preparing to wake the sleeper, Rinaka placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Sometimes the cave takes, she said, but sometimes it returns. The pod opened with a soft hiss. The girl's eyes fluttered open slowly. Confused and weak, Jason knelt beside her, tears in his eyes. It's me, he whispered. I'm here. She reached for him with shaking fingers. Rinaka stood quietly watching them, then turned away to give them a moment. Later, when the sun broke through the clouds above, the three of them stood at the station's exit. Jason looked out at the land, then at Rinaka. What happens now? He asked. Rinaka didn't answer at first. She looked at her leg, now fully healed, but still more human than before. Then she looked at Jason. We find others, she said, and we tell them the truth. Jason nodded slowly. He had gone into the cave looking for hope and came out with pain, loss, answers, and something more, a bond, a memory, a reason to keep walking forward. The cave had changed them, but they were no longer just survivors. They were connected now by blood, by story, and by choice. And far below the earth, deep in the dark where no light reached, the crawler watched the cracks it had once crept through. It blinked once, then slowly turned away. Its purpose was done. The humans had left, but they had taken something ancient with them, a spark, a future.